So before we get into this video, I'm going to put this at the beginning just in case. So warning for some of you, if you guys do not like stuff like this. There's going to be graphic content, violence, and overall just a very uncomfortable situation. So you've been warned. Oh, and also, I wanted to say thank you to the writer of this. You did a fantastic job. Now let's begin. Auburn, Indiana, the DeKalb County Free Fair, 1991. Carnivals in North America have become a popular traveling attraction since their inception in the late 1800s to the early 1900s. Although different from the traveling circuses that were made popular by the founding ringleaders such as P.T. Barnum, James Anthony Bailey, and the Ringling Brothers, you can find similar folk nearby, such as at county and state fairs all across the US and the world. Yes, I am talking about the ever-fascinating world of the CARNY or CARNY life. But there's one true crimes case that comes to mind when discussed amongst the CARNY folk, or the outsiders alike, known simply as the CARNY cult. The CARNY cult, known familiarly as Satan's Disciples, was established in 1991 by 4 carnival employees of Poor John's Carnival by 2 brothers, David and Keith Lawrence, Mark Goodwin, and Jimmy Penrick. As the name of their cult insinuates, these individuals were heavily devoted to the seedy underground worlds of heavy metal and Satanism. Keith Lawrence was heavily devoted to this particular type of environment and was the more hostile brother as compared to David, a modern-day Cain and Abel. David was often afraid of his brother. An instance, they would be having a normal conversation. The next, he would be chased by his knife-wielding brother and being forced into becoming a believer in Satanism. When they were young, their parents sent Keith off to a private school in hopes that Keith would become calmer and would get his aggression under control. Once he was released, David spent as much time with him as possible and did the best to keep his brother out of trouble. However, trouble always made its way back to the Lawrence brothers' lives, one way or another. The brothers would be introduced to their fellow CARNY co-workers, Mark Goodwin and Jimmy Penrick, and thus we have our founding fathers of Satan's Disciples. Like Keith Lawrence, Mark too had a particular interest in Satanism and the occultism at a young age. Now Mark had a different set of goals in order to please his love and appreciation for the Dark Lord. He wanted to gain Satan's diabolical powers by performing rituals involved with animal sacrifices and mutilation. However, there is a deeply disconcerting matter that involved the murder of another man that wasn't related to the cult activity. As the cult grew in size, the men would retreat to abandoned places, barns, and cemeteries and perform their rituals and dank flesh animal blood of their newly sacrificed animal. The men all wore long dark robes, while the women of the occult were only allowed to wear black lingerie. Oftentimes, the members were well known to pay homage to their Dark Lord in the form of while singing satanic hymns. This is when the occult spots a new victim. However, this isn't an animal that they were hunting, but rather one of their own. His name was William Alt, better known to his friends and family as Tony. You see, Tony had always been an outsider in the CARNY clique, and he just wanted so badly to be amongst his fellow CARNY folk. Good thing for Tony, he also had surprising appreciation for Satanism, and this made the cult question whether he was truly willing to do whatever it took to become a member. Little did the members of Satan's Disciple know, though, Tony had a trick up his sleeve that would make him either a very valuable asset to the cult or end up as a man who knew too much. Tony knew quite a bit about the intimate information about Jimmy Penrick's involvement in the previous murder and was going to blackmail Penrick in order to earn a spot in the cult. This proved to be a fatal mistake. Like any fraternity, sorority, and/or cult, an initiation must be indoctrinated to bring in those who want to join this organization. Tony Alt's initiation was going to be one that nobody would ever forget. On September 25th, 1991, Mark Goodwin had asked a good friend of his, named Brenda Ferguson, to take them to a secluded place where they can hold the initiation. After work, Brenda and the cult dropped them off at an abandoned barn where a crude-looking altar was set up. It was at this point that Tony was asked to lay down on the altar, where he was tied and gagged. As prayers to the Dark Lord were being casted over him, Tony was about to endure a horrifying death, as his throat was being sliced down to his groin by none other than Jimmy Pinnock. As the prayers continued, the other members carved marks into his body, one that included an inverted cross. Once Tony was dead, the cult took the money that he had out of his pockets, dismembered his body before attempting to burn it. When they couldn't burn his body completely, they buried Tony's body in a shallow grave. Tony's murder went left undetected as the cult continued to travel for work. 3 months later, Tony's remains were discovered on December 13th, 1991, after a tip was given to the police by Mark Goodwin's father. During a conversation they had while Mark was on the road, Mark admitted to his father that he was present during Tony's murder. All of the cult members were arrested and were facing serious charges and lengthy sentences. Jimmy Pinnock was charged with murder and possibly facing the death penalty, but ultimately sentenced to 60 years in prison. Keith was sentenced to 20 years and was charged with aiding with a killing, while both David and Mark were sentenced to only 8 years for the same charge. During the trial, the DeKalb County prosecutor believed that Tony met his demise because he knew too much about the previous murder that Pinnock had committed. Tony Alt was laid to rest in Rochester, Indiana, at the age of 21. He only wanted to fit in with society and to find a brotherhood that made him feel accepted. Unfortunately, he got involved with the bad crowd and made a mistake he could never take back. So friends, think twice about the company you keep. You never know if the old saying is true. Keep your friends safe and your enemies closer. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, make sure to let me know down in the comments section if you would like to hear more types of stories like this. I kind of went back to my roots for this one. It's kind of how my channel actually started. But there's a very big difference between then and now. Please do not go watch my early stuff. Please do not. It's horrible. But if you would like to hear more of these, please do let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel and you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe. We're doing nothing but growing. I honestly find a very big interest in this type of stuff, especially like the cult stuff. I'm not saying I'm a cultist or anything. I just find it fascinating. But with that being said, if you would like to hear more, make sure to let me know, like I said. Make sure to check out my links in the description as well, like my Twitter, Instagram, and even my Gmail if you would like to submit a story. I love telling subscriber stories, or just stories in general that you guys find interesting that doesn't require permission or anything. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one. I've been sick for like the last day and a half, so show me some love. Goodbye.